stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. I can tell that they do damage to you. I didn't mean what I said when I said that you were ugly. What I said when I said that you were ugly. What I said when I said that you had no feeling. What I said when I said I don't love you anymore.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Reading Between the Lines. I am your host, the Waterdog, and today I'm going to be talking about a Ravnos Bleed deck. But before I do that, would you do me the kind favor of hitting up my sponsor for today's video, KGS Cards? That's right, KGS Cards. That's who I go to for my VTES product, brother. They are outstanding. So it doesn't matter if you are a player or if you are a brick and mortar store like I have. KGS Cards is your go-to place for all the VTES product that's out there, my friends. And let me tell you right now, if you go to KGS Cards, you can get yourself a 3rd tradition progeny and a 4th tradition accounting promos. All those details are right there on his website at www.kgs-cards.com. Tell them the Waterdog sent you. All right, let's get to it, man. Ravnos Bleed. Now, when this first came out, and I was and I first broke open the box. Of course, the card that stands out is Breaking the Bonds. It is better than the Platinum Protocol. It is just really good. You get those 3 great things with it. You get the bleed, you get to lock down a minion, you get to add a blood to a vampire in your control region. So if you got all 3 of those disciplines, if you got the animalism, you know, the presence and the obfuscate, then you can do a lot of great things. And Breaking the Bonds is just you know, a strong card, you know, for all of that, you know. And then you tie that into a memory writ, and with 2 cards, you know, you're bleeding +1, you know, you're adding a blood, you're locking down a minion, and then now you get a +1 stealth, and you know, you're going to be able to strike combat ends if you get into combat. So 5 things off of 2 cards is just really strong. But when I first got the set, the Ravnos set, the first thing I looked at it was, I was just playing Breaking the Bonds. I wasn't looking at a pure Ravnos, you know, crypt. I was looking really at some other things. So one of the things I was looking at was just, you know, what are the best vampires overall that have those 3 disciplines for Breaking the Bonds? And so I was sticking in my my deck a Boleslav Gutowski, a Jacques Rouge, Marcel, Coach Tyrone Soros. All of those vampires play right in, you know, into those cards. You know what I'm saying? And so you stick that in there with a crypt of 8 Ravnos, and all of a sudden you've got a really good crypt. And of course, me, if you know the Waterdog, if you know any way that I like to play, I love effective management. And so this just fit right in me. I've got 12 vampires. They're all unique, you know, and then you just effective management out those vampires. And so all of that's there. So if you go to episode 41 of my channel, episode 41 covers that deck. And like I said, that was just my first thoughts when the Ravnos when it first came out. I built that deck. I only played that deck once. I never even, you know, tinkered with it after I had built it. And I went out and I played it at the Week of Nightmares, and I got a game win. I came close to getting a 2nd game win, and then Ben Pill walled me up, and I couldn't get past Ben Pill, and we timed out. Thanks, Ben. So I didn't make the final table, but the deck played well. And so it's a really, it's you know, the card breaking is just really good. Then I went and I tooled it, and I just made it pure Ravnos, because the one thing about this deck is that Week of Nightmares and the Visions of Gehenna card just make the Ravnos that much stronger. And so it just makes it a stronger bleed deck if you really go all in on adding those 2 cards. That's really what it kind of does there, okay? And so I built that, and I never played it. I had one of my players, and we did an episode with Sid here a while back with his lasombra deck, but he was playing that Ravnos deck, and he would always get to the final table with it, but he couldn't crack through with his Ravnos Bleed deck. And so he was playing it, so I never played it. You know, Darby Keeney won with it, Andy Smith won with it, you know, over there in the South. And they were playing it, and I just had never gone back to it. So finally I decided, you know what, this year, you know, I'm going to go to Lafayette. It's just a one-day tournament, this Truth and Darkness tournament, and I'm going to go ahead and play the Ravnos deck. But before I did, I talked to the experts. You know, I went and I talked to Andy and I talked to Darby, who had both won with the deck, and got their thoughts on it. Ironically, we all run in the same crypt. You know, that's one of the things I noticed that very quickly. We were all running the same crypt. Me and Andy's deck was a little bit more similar in the fact that, you know, we play in the South, and so there's just so much combat in the South. And typically speaking, you're just going to get beat up. You've got to have a way to keep some minions on the table. We were both looking at force of personality and everything. But then it was just really my conversation with Darby just simply said, you know, because one of the big differences in the decks for me and you know, Andy and Darby's deck was master cards. And so after talking with Darby, he convinced me to play some extra Valens, and I agreed with that. Not worry so much about the combat, because if you're going to get dunked, you're just going to get dunked, and I agreed with that. And so we went with it there. And so then I played the deck that I played, and I got a couple of game wins to get me into the final table, and won the final table. So we're going to have a look at some Ravnos Bleed. So let's have a look at the deck, all right? Now let's start with the crypt. Now for Ravnos, because you're playing Breaking the Bonds and you're going to be playing Memory Rift, you're going to be playing those two cards specifically. You want to have a crypt that reflects it, but by the same token, you don't want to be, you know, drawn into the same vampire. So the most copies I'm going to play with anything is going to be 2. And so we're going to play 2 Robertos because he's superior at all 3 of those disciplines. Gothi's got all 3 disciplines. We're going to play 2 of those. And Fabian, we're going to play 2 of those. Now, the thing about those vampires, the reason why we're playing with 2 copies of them is, you know, Roberto's a 6 cap, you know, and Gothi and Fabian are 5 caps. And so you're looking for, you know, low cap vampires that can do all, because one of the things about Anarch tri-discipline cards is you just need the inferior. So as long as you've got the inferior, there you go. It's really Anarch, because of that tri-discipline inferior, you know, style of the card for those action cards, modifier cards, combat cards, etc., 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 that you can literally play the worst type of vampire out there, which is the 4 cap with 3 inferior disciplines. And so you can play them, you know. So that's one of the things about these Anarch cards, is that you can play really the worst of the bunch, which is the 4 cap with the 3 inferior disciplines. It makes him playable in a lot of decks, which is crazy, but there you go. We got 1 Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a conundrum. I almost did keep her in there, but because, you know, of the discipline spread, at this point she's the best one to put in there. But, you know, I'm hoping that with the New Bloods we get a better vampire for this particular crypt. But it's an 8 cap, and it's the 8 capacity. And if you could get one to 7 capacity, 6 capacity, that would even be better. And it doesn't matter her special. Her special, just, you know, to get the extra, you know, discard, to get the +1 bleed, it's not as important as having the capacity, because and here's my thinking on it, and I'll tell you what it is. It's going to take you 2 turns to get her out, okay? Well, that takes away a turn from me from doing anywhere from 4 to 6 damage to my prey. It takes a turn away, okay? So in some cases, it takes 2 turns away. So that's in the potential of having anywhere from 8 to 12 bleed damage on your prey. That's the difference. The difference is simply, you know, the cost of having to have her brought out and this, that, and the other, and to get her out there onto the field. It just slows down the engine. And of course, with this engine, you just want her to be fast and just rock and roll. So that's right, there you go. 1 Doc, 1 Luciano, here we go, 1 Jean, there's your 4 cap, 3 inferior discipline. And then we go down here to the other 2 who don't have animalism. They don't have it, but Zafira and Oleg, they both have obfuscate and they both have presence. Zafira does have the superior presence, and that's key because that helps you with your Visions of Gehenna card. So there you go. So anyway, that's the crypt. That's what we're looking at right there. And so then now let's turn to where there's probably going to be, for me, there's some differences between mine and some of the other players' decks. Just in the MasterCard sense, this is where I had made some of the changes from the previous deck that I had built. Okay, I was playing with fewer MasterCards than my colleagues who helped me build this deck Andy and Darby, and I was just playing with fewer valence. And I understand exactly what they were doing because it's the same thing I talk about in video 41. And if you want to look at the tactics of how to play this deck, then just go, because it's the same tactics. The tactics aren't changed. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through tactics, but if you go to episode 41, I discussed the tactics there. In any case, one Anarch Troublemaker, you got a Club Illusion, Coven, Dabbler, Giant's Blood, Jake Washington, which actually proved to be more vital to me as a blocker to just stop some of the pressure. More vital to me as a blocker than it was for a Refuel the Vampire. Ironically, that's really what, that's where he met his demise in 2 of the rounds. Pentex Subversion, 6 Valens, 2 Week of Nightmares, and a wider view. And the reason why I want the wider view is because if I do happen to hit it, number one, I can then go through the crypt and move the crypt around as needed, which I think is very important for this deck. And the other thing is if I have to burn it for the 2 pool, I can gain a pool, just get an extra 1 pool just to kind of help me with my pool recursion there. So there you go. That's the MasterCard package. Now in the actions, we're just doing 3 things for me. Breaking the bonds, we got 17 of them. Then we're going to have 2 entrancements and 3 field trainings. Now let's talk about entrancement and field trainings, because entrancement, I put that in there really because there's been a lot of allies that's been being played in our area a lot, and especially with the fact that you now got the Hakata and a lot of the allies out there. I wanted something to steal Carlton, so if I needed a blocker and somebody had put Carlton into play, I could take it. If somebody was playing a Guru that was going to rush, I could take it. At worst, it's a +1 bleed. And so just a couple of entrancements, it's not bad. I can understand the argument. This is where I do differ from Andy and Darby. They didn't like entrancement. I love entrancement, and so it didn't bother me because you're going to lock down vampires anyway. And then it's going to be a small occurrence that you draw into an entrancement. Okay, and so if you have it to get the ally, then great. If not, you just bleed with it. So there you go. So field training. Surprisingly enough, I field trained more than anything else to get superior presence. That's really what I did. Typically speaking, you're going to try to field train to get animalism. I wasn't. I was field training to get superior presence. That's really what I was doing, and that helped me with my Visions of Gehenna, and that's kind of where I was playing off of that. So that's the actions. Going to the modifiers, we've got 2 Elder Impersonations, 4 Faceless Knights, 4 Lost in Crowds, 12 Memory Rifts, 4 Power of Ones, 2 True Love's Face, and 8 Visions of Gehenna. There are a total of 14 Pump Bleed cards, but what I do like about Power of One and True Love's Face is the fact that, if you need to get an extra stealth to help get the bleed off and still get a Pump Bleed, Power of One does good with that. And the True Love's Face gives you the +1 bleed. This helps you with the low end cards. But then don't forget that you can make a minion have an attempt fail if they don't have enough blood to stop it. So there's just a way to kind of have that. So that gives you a little bit of advantage. And at worst, once again, it's just a +1 bleed. And so those are your cards. Of course, the main one is going to be the Memory Rift. The Memory Rift is going to be your major package that you're going to be looking at in that card because, it's just so good. It's so good with breaking the bonds that you put it in there. But your plus bleed cards are definitely Power 1, True Love's Face, Visions of Gehenna, and Visions of Gehenna is the one you're really trying to get off more than anything else. It's one of the reasons why you're going to field train to get you the superior presence with the deck. Okay? All right. Moving on. There is no combat package. There is no reaction package. It is simply a go-forward deck. So you're just trying to basically maximize your pool as much as you can using Break the Bonds and your Master cards. And then you just go forward and gain pool as you eliminate players as you're going around. So with that in mind, it gets me to the one card I do put into a go-forward deck. I swear I think I put it in every go-forward deck I play, and that's an event card, the Bitter and the Sweet story. It's an event. Each Methuselah gets +2 hand size for each victory point he or she has. It's great. It increases your hands and it doesn't hurt you. Now, if there's already players at the table that have already got VPs, okay, they've already required a victory point, then you just discard it. Okay? Don't put it into play because you don't want to give your opponents an advantage, right? But if nobody has, put it into play. Get that VP, get your hand size to 9. All of a sudden it's 11, all of a sudden it's 13. It helps increase your odds of having the cards that you need to have in order to oust your next, prey. So that's why I love it. And so if I'm playing a go forward deck, this is one of the cards that I stick in. So it's just, I love the Bitter This Week story. Just stick it in the deck. You can't go wrong with it if you're playing a go forward deck. That's just my opinion. So it's just, there's every player has a play style, and so that's why certain cards, they may play better for another player than they do you, simply because of play style, okay? And so if you have a way that you go about playing the game, there's some players that having an extra size in the hand, extra hand size, they don't need. Some of them, they prefer playing with a lot. Me, I'm kind of in between. I'm kind of like, I don't necessarily need it, but to have a one of, to get the extra +2 cards, that's just too good. So I throw it in the deck. So there you go. So that's the deck, okay? Went out and played it out there at the Truth and Darkness out there in Lafayette. Norm Brown was the host. He's always a gracious host out there. We always have a good time. I brought 3 other Vouter vampires out there, and just fun tournament. Round 1 went, I got the game win round 1. Got a game win, 3 VPs. Round 2, I got crushed. I think I got 1 VP before I got ousted with combat deck. And then round 3, I got fortunate. Round 3 was really crazy because it was a 4-player table. And I'm sandwiched in between Justin playing Ged and Norm playing Bano Hakim wall block. Just block actions, okay? And that's who I was in between, righty? And my grand predator and prey, I guess because it's a 4-player table, Clay was playing a ministry deck. And I typically speaking, when you're facing these rush combat decks, for me, I just try to get 1 vampire out just to have a presence. Try to get in as much damage on them as I can to weaken them, because if you can weaken them somewhat, it's harder for them to get out a lot of extra minions, because if you can get a 3 to 5 damage on that deck before they can get out their first vampire, which is usually going to be anywhere between 9, 10, 11 cap, okay? Because usually it takes them anywhere from 2 to 3 turns. In worse circumstances, it takes them 4 turns to get it out. You've done enough damage where they're really only playing with 1 vampire. See what I'm saying? It's hard for them to get a second. If they get a second vampire out, it's just usually going to be a very low cap utility vampire. What you don't want them to have is 3, 4 vampires out, and then they've dominated the table. So you try to get as much damage. So I get 1 vampire out and do as much damage, and then I'm just simply, during my influence, just putting, my pull on the vampires, but not pulling them out. Very reminiscent of what I did when I was playing against the Tut Dog decks. And we talked about that in the video before. If you go back to the Flower Power, and we're talking about the Toreador, and we're talking about the Grand Prix. I can't remember the episode number for that one, but we talked about that strategy. Same thing with Get, just not bringing any vampires out. Lo and behold, Justin does the one thing that I just don't think you should do when you are really relying on 1 vampire. He decided to bleed Clay for 4, and he got Archon. There were so many Archons in this tournament, and I'll tell you how bad Archon Investigation was. I had a vampire AI'd every round of the tournament, including the final. Every round of the tournament, I had a vampire AI, including the final, and it just wasn't from this. It was different play. Almost everybody was playing with an Archon Investigation. And I've never seen that many before, but they were all over the place. And so I literally had lost a vampire every round to AI, and Justin relied on that 1 vampire instead of bleeding for 3, bled for 4, lost that vampire, and that allowed me then to bring out my vampires, and of course then I get the game win at that table. And so there you go. So that's just one of those things. One of the things about this Ravnos Bleed deck, and it's highly resilient, because I can tell you some of the following things that happened to my vampires, because I was getting vampires beat up left and right, but I was able to bring out more vampires. I had a vampire that was, of course, deaded. sent away. I had vampires that was rushed with contracts. I had vampires that had anathema placed on them, so they were burned. And I had my buddy Tom, my fighter vampire, who I taught the trick of the shattering. He was shattering me left and right. He hit me with, I think, 4 shatterings in one game. And just crushed me with shatterings, you know, just because it's such a good card. If you're going to play Protean, man, if you're going to play Protean Anarchs, shattering's really good. And so I had a lot of vampires that were just getting beat up in that game. But because the deck is so resilient, and really, as long as you can keep 2 vampires active, you have a chance of winning with this deck. So 2 vampires active, you have a good chance of winning this deck because the bleed package is just so good, so strong. And so, there you go. So let's talk about the final table. I was in the first. I was in first place going into the final table. So I had the 2 game wins and I had the most VPs, and so I was able to pick my seat. It is such an advantage to be able to pick your seat. I just can't tell you how. And now for me, because of the deck styles that I play, my seating typically is not as important. But when you are playing a go forward deck, it is. Okay? So I'm looking at the final table and I see that Joey's playing a bleed potence deck. He's basically going forwards, he's bleeding. He doesn't go backwards. He doesn't go across the table, even though he's playing with a combat package, a really good combat package. But that combat package only comes into play when he is blocked. So if you block him, that's when the combat package sticks. Otherwise, you can get bled for a lot. You can get bled, I want to say up to 5 or 6 per vampire if you're not careful, because of the way that potence dominate deck that he was playing. That's really what it was. Clay was playing a ministry deck, okay, and he was playing it with the British Museum, and so he was playing it with equipments and stuff and multi-acting, and then basically Platinum Protocol. He's very good at this deck. I've seen him play this on several occasions. He plays this deck well. Tom playing a ministry deck as well. Tom's deck's a little bit more toolboxy, but then there you go. And then BJ was playing a Toreador vote deck, okay? And so I just positioned myself, you know, in a position between the vote deck and Joey's deck, the go forward deck, because basically Joey goes forward, Clay goes forward, Tom goes forward. They're going to hurt each other, and so for me, just go forward and bleed. And so that's kind of what I did, you know, being able to pick the seat that I had, you know. So Joey goes down, you know, sets up for Clay. Clay goes down. You know, you're just going forward. And then Tom, you just go forward. You're just bleeding, because these are all go forward decks. And at the table, I had the best go forward deck. I had the one that had the most consistency, bleed package. The other decks had some other mechanics that they were playing within their decks, where they're not always able to unload a package. I'm unloading the same package, and so being able to sit behind 3 go forward decks, there you go. The other advantage is that they're all doing damage to each other. You know, Joey goes to bleed Clay. Clay might bounce it over to Tom. You know what I'm saying? Clay goes to bleed Tom. Tom's trying to, you know, bleed BJ, and BJ did really good. He played really good. He was able to gain a lot of pull, gain a lot of strength, get a lot of vampires out there, which is what he was doing. And then me and him ended up heads up, and I conceded those 2 VPs to BJ. I had to take care of a medical emergency, and so I had to leave a little bit early. And so BJ got it. BJ played really, really well. But anyway, good deck. It's a good go forward deck. It's got a good bleed engine. You know, it is vulnerable to votes. It is vulnerable to combat. It is vulnerable to rush decks. But if you don't have a whole lot of impeding things, it does really good going forward. The other thing is that it's resilient, you know, because you can lose vampires and still maintain some sort of presence on the table with it, because the bleed package is that strong. That's it, man. Gang, that's all I got time for, brother. I appreciate you watching, man. If you would do me the kind favor of hitting that subscribe button, it means a whole lot to me. I appreciate it if you would do that. Thank you for watching. Reading Between the Lines. I'm the Water Dog. Y'all take care. Hey, man, thanks for watching Reading Between the Lines. If you'll do me the kind favor, if you look right there. You see that little circle? That says subscribe. Hit that subscribe button for me. I appreciate it. Underneath that, that's a playlist. So if you want to watch more videos, hit the playlist. It's not complicated. It's real simple. Subscribe. Playlist. Subscribe. Playlist.